Welcome to all my beautiful sisters, empowered daughters, fulfilled women of God. Welcome to today's Dear Daughters entry. I am your host and speaker. I'm out here to help you, sis. I am Kayla Williams, also known as Kay Will Speaks on the internet, okay? And today we're really discussing a extremely sensitive topic here. If you are a fatherless daughter, or maybe you previously identified as a fatherless daughter, you know and understand that this is a lifelong journey. It is a lifelong process of overcoming your fears, your insecurities, the abandonment that you experienced as a child. It doesn't just go away all of a sudden. But the process of transformation, the process of healing, helps you to deal with the triggers that are associated with growing up as a fatherless daughter. So tonight, God had me take it back. He had me take it all the way back to the days when I finally decided that I would look at him as my father, first and foremost. Even if no other man in my life were to appear, it was this song, really, You Know My Name by Tasha Cobbs, that God would have me play over and over and over again. Not because I just love to, I do love to just sing the songs. See, y'all know me, I love to sing, I love music. It's very therapeutic for me, but he needed me to understand that he knew my name. Not only did he know my name, but he knew my character. He knew my heart. He knew my mind. He knew my pain. He knew what made me happy. He knew my joys. He knew my hopes. He knew my dreams. He knew the things that I was afraid of. And he never gave up on me. Not only did he not give up on me, but he remained faithful in my darkest hours. So today, as we discuss overcoming abandonment issues, right? I want you to remember throughout this entire entry that God knows your name. And he knows your name because he has always been and will continue to be your heavenly Father, and the one who protects you, the one who supports you, and the one who helps you. So I've been doing some research, y'all, on abandonment issues, and I have to say this one is really deep. It's deep because I looked at the definition of overcome, right? And so to overcome means to gain superiority, to conquer, to defeat. And I said, okay, so if I want to help these beautiful young women of God, right? I want to help them, and welcome everybody to the room. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. If I want to help you, God, I need you to help me. That's essentially where I came with this piece today. Because I realized that overcoming abandonment issues, it's not just the one check box. Boom, I handled that symptom of growing up as a fatherless daughter, and so I'm good. Like, no. Overcoming abandonment issues, it's one of the issues that piles on itself as the years go on. The common denominator when it comes to fear of abandonment, because it can happen to anybody, is loss. Loss is the common denominator. Whether you lost a parent, whether you lost a puppy, a dog, whether you lost a friend or a grandmother, grandfather, a close family member. The fear of abandonment happens when you have opened yourself up to someone that you loved, that you cared for, that you hoped would support you and help you and protect you in whatever way, shape, or form. And they left. Now, because we're talking about the effects of growing up as a fatherless daughter, I want you to think about these three things. I want you to think about your history. I want you to think about your present. And I want you to think about your future. Why do I say that? Because when it comes to overcoming abandonment, when it comes to conquering the fear of being left behind, The first step that you have to take is to understand your history. You see, I grew up as a fatherless daughter because my parents got divorced. And because my parents got divorced, it sort of strained my relationship with my dad. And because that was the case, I looked for that protection. I looked for that support, that security on a daily basis from a father figure. But I was never able to receive that because of the divorce. Now, I don't know at what point it happened. If it was when he initially walked out the door or when I realized that he was gone, because I was pretty young. But somewhere down the line, abandonment started to seep into my heart. And once it started to seep into my heart, I realized that I was too young to actually process and to actually articulate the emotions that I was feeling on the inside. So even though I felt anxious, even though I felt pain, because there's a quote that says, when a father leaves his daughter, he takes a piece of her soul with him. And because he takes a piece of her soul with him, that is how those daddy issues, that is how those insecurities, that fear of rejection and fear of intimacy and the emotional debt that you accrue over the years, that is where it first begins. And so for me as a young girl, as a child, I didn't know how to process him being gone. And it probably wasn't until a couple years later where I actually realized the impact of, oh snap, my daddy not here every day. That's crazy. And I say it's so important to understand your history, because if you don't understand your history, how can you recognize what the issues are? How can you recognize what your pain points are, what you're struggling with? You see, me growing up with a mom who was working 2 and 3 jobs at a time, and I had 2 older sisters, I'm the youngest of 3. There were always times when I found like I was by myself. You know, I was the baby. I wasn't cool enough to hang out with my sisters. So I had to find something to do for myself. And so oftentimes I felt like I was kind of forgotten about. I felt like I was left alone because nobody cared for me. Now that's not to say that was the case, but that's how I felt. And so I can remember the moments when all I really wanted was somebody to be there with me, somebody to comfort me, somebody to spend that quality time with me. Y'all know how I feel about love languages and what I've been sharing with you, how understanding how you best receive love is one of the best things that you can do, especially if you grew up as a fatherless daughter who struggles with the symptoms that comes with that. And so, as I talk about understanding your history, for me, I had to realize that my entire life, I have always sought to fill that piece of my soul that no longer was with me, because it was with my dad wherever he was. And the way that I did that was I would adopt fathers. Like, I would find father figures. I would actively seek out and search for men that could support me, that could help me, that could protect me, because that's what I was desiring as a little girl. And I would literally hop from one father figure, and then when I felt like things was getting a little bit shaky, I was like, oh, nope, I'm gonna let that one go. I'm gonna leave that one before I get hurt again, and I'm gonna go to the next one. So then I went to the next one, and the same thing happened. I started to repeat the same exact cycle. I would have one father figure, then when I felt like things were getting a little shaky, and what was once the family that I desired to be a part of, what was once the family that I had always hoped for, it started to fall apart because life started happening. People started getting divorces, and people started splitting up. And because I had already previously experienced that in my own life, in my own family, I would jet. Literally, y'all, I dipped as soon as I saw things going south. And then I was fatherless again for a moment. And I realized that in the times between me finding those earthly father figures, what I would do is then I would make time for God to actually be a father to me. So it would look something like this. Father figure one, also who I like to call dad number one, because he's not the OG. The OG is my biological father. But dad number one was emotionally available. He was physically present. He was extremely loving to me. And I have so many good memories with dad number one. But life started to happen with dad number one. And because I was young, and again, I could not articulate, I could not understand what was happening or why it was happening. I also could not express the pain that I was feeling. Because that was the case, what did I have to do? I dipped. I dipped on dad number one. And when I dipped on dad number one, I had a space right there. And in that space, what I did, I was like, all right, God, cool. So I don't have an earthly father figure right now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to learn to love you. And I'm going to trust you for this time being. But don't get comfortable. That's why you tell God, don't get comfortable. Because I'm going to find me another daddy to fill this void. Because I can't see you, so I can't trust you. But for now, for this time period, when I need you, I'm going to look out for you. So that's how I used to do God, right? So not only did I do that, and then after I filled that fatherless gap with God, I found me another earthly father. And y'all, the cycle continued, and the more research that I did, I realized like, wow, I really suffered deeply from abandonment issues. Some of the signs of abandonment issues are clinginess, right? Like you have clingy tendencies in relationships. You are always the one that is bending backwards, that is always going the extra mile to help and to be whatever somebody needs you to be, because you don't want to just be by yourself. You also don't feel like you're enough by yourself. You always need somebody else or something else to feel wherever you sense you're lacking. So you become super clingy. And I know y'all heard before about them girls that be in relationship with guys and he be like, bruh, she just too clingy. She always up in my grill. She always want to be around me. And don't mistake me, right? Being clingy and quality time being your love language, there is a distinct difference. But if you're not careful and you don't understand your history and you don't acknowledge the areas where you have been impacted because you've grown up as a fatherless daughter, the enemy, what he will do is pervert what is pure. He will pervert that quality time as your love language, and he'll pervert that into clinginess and codependency on someone else or something else. And for fatherless daughters, that tends to be men or boys. I mean, that was me, y'all. I was the clingy one to any guy that would pay attention to me for any amount of time. And because I understood my history, right? Point one, I'm saying in overcoming abandonment issues, you have to understand your history. When I became an adult, I realized if there was something that I didn't like, but I did not take the steps necessary to change it, then I was accepting that as my reality. I'll say that again. When I became a grown woman with grown bills, okay, and a grown big girl job, I realized that if there were things in my life that I was unhappy with, but I did not do anything to change them, then I was accepting that thing. And because I said to myself, I understand my history. I understand that because I suffered from abandonment issues, from feeling like I was not protected, I was not secured, I was not cared for. Because I felt that way, I would be extremely clingy anytime a guy paid attention to me. Because I had that void. Y'all know I always talk about that void that's present in your heart because your dad is not around. And so I realized, like, dang, your girl kind of clingy. And then something else I realized is that I would reject people, and even myself sometimes, before others had the chance to do so. So what does that look like? It looks like when I got dad number 2 and dad number 3, it looks like that cycle, the same thing that I did to dad number 1. So with dad number 2, who was emotionally present and who was physically present and emotionally available, what I did was the moment again that I saw, oh, we getting a little bit too close, I'm having to open up my heart in ways that I don't necessarily think that I'm ready to open up my heart, right? Because as a little girl, there were things in me that happened to me, experiences that I had. Somebody left, my dad left, my mom left, my sister left, my friend left, my uncle left, my cousin left, my auntie left. Somebody left me. And when they left me, I did not have the emotional capacity to process those feelings. And because I didn't have the emotional capacity as a 3-year-old, as a 5-year-old, as a 7-year-old, even as a 22-year-old, because I didn't have the emotional capacity to process that, what happened? Well, I started to dip on people before they could dip on me. I started to reject people before they could reject me. And it even got so bad that I started to reject myself. Oh, Kayla, you talk too much. You need to hush. At one point, I would defend myself and be like, nah, like I got something to say. I'm going to say it. But then I got to a point where I would be like, Kayla, you need to shut up. You just need to be quiet. Because don't nobody want to hear what you got to say. You ain't got nothing to say that nobody want to hear. There's no value there. So you just keep your mouth closed. Yeah, you think you got all these important thoughts, but really they're not important. And these are things that I used to tell myself, because when you deal with rejection, when you deal with abandonment, what ends up happening is before anybody can reject you, before anybody can hurt you, before anybody can actually create a relationship with you that is actually deep and not just surface and shallow, you find a way to dip. You find a way to protect yourself from the hurt and the pain that you've known in times past, and so you leave. Even if it looks like a good thing. Even if it's not a romantic relationship, maybe it's just a friendship. You find some type of way to sabotage what you have as a good thing in fear that it will leave you, because that is what your past has taught you. And a lot of times as children who grow up fatherless, the trauma that you carried in your childhood, I saw an image today, guys. The image was literally a humongous rock that said childhood trauma on the back of what was a 25-year-old adult. And I bring that up because what happens when you're fatherless and you don't address those issues and you are struggling with abandonment is that you carry the burden of your childhood. You carry the burden of your environment, of your life experiences, those things that you had no control over, but that deeply impacted you, and rightfully so. But you carry it into your adulthood. And a lot of times when you carry those traumas into your adulthood, what ends up happening is you either project those traumas onto your children and start to repeat the same cycles. Just like I told y'all, if you grow up as a fatherless daughter, you are more likely to also have children who will grow up fatherless. And you have to get to a point, which is what I get to point two, and I say evaluate your present. You have to get to a point where you say, I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for my children. I don't want that for my children's children. And when you evaluate your present and you say, okay, I see that I'm a little clingy. I also see that I'm a people pleaser. And I'm putting in all this effort to keep others happy. And I start to feel like a doormat. I start to feel like people are taking advantage of me. And like I'm not actually valued. And because I start to feel like that, but I don't want to run the risk of losing the person that's giving me some type of love, I continue to just deal with it. I deal with it and I compromise and I stay in those unhealthy relationships. I stay in those toxic relationships because in my mind, as long as I keep giving love, even if it's at my expense, I won't be alone. I won't be lonely. I won't have to rehash those feelings that I never hashed out from years ago when I was first abandoned. So I say evaluate your present. Once you understand your history and you say, okay, yeah, like I legit would find me some type of father somewhere in the mix, or I would look for some type of guy to fill my voids, or I would look to substances to make me, to help me process my emotions, or I would look to alcoholism to escape, or I would look to sex to make myself feel better. Y'all, when I start talking too fast, I get a lot of this. So I'm here now. But Kayla, I'm excited because as I think about this topic, it's so powerful. It's so extremely powerful, and so many people are walking around with abandonment issues that they are not able to sit down and actually evaluate their present once they understand their history. And it's not easy. It's not easy to pull back the layers. But once you evaluate your present and you say, I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to be a product of my childhood trauma. I do not want to operate out of my daddy issues. I don't want to operate out of my daddy wounds. I don't want to operate out of the deficiency that I've had my entire life because I wasn't able to create a healthy relationship with my father. Once you evaluate your present and you say, I don't want this for myself. I found myself as a college graduate, magna cum laude, accomplished job. I got a good job. I had just bought my first car. I was able to buy my own apartment, and all these material things that I thought would solve the problem of the void that I had been feeling of not enough all my entire life. And I found myself in this 1-bedroom apartment, and I'm like, I have all these things here. I have all these things that I thought were going to be the key and the solution to my pain and my hurt. And yet I feel as empty as ever. I feel more alone than I've ever felt in my entire life. Why is that, God? Like, I did everything right. Why don't I feel fulfilled? And it was in that moment that I evaluated my present. And when I evaluated my present, I had to take the next step, which was to shift my focus off of others, shift my focus off of the things that I didn't have, shift my focus off of the relationships and the childhood trauma that I've been operating out of. And once I shift my focus off of all of those things, I put it on me. And that was when I had my mirror moment. And as I'm looking in the mirror, I'm like, Kayla, how did you get here? But not only how did you get here, but do you really want to stay here? Do you really want to deal with this for another 25 years? Or will you commit to your future? Will you commit to who God has called you to be? Because if you're willing to commit, there we will find the answer to the pain that we've been feeling. There we will find the solution to the problems that we've been experiencing. There, when we have our mirror moment and we shift our focus off of what everybody else has done wrong, there is where we say, I know who I want to be. And I know that my name is more than just a name. My name represents the unique abilities, the unique gifts, the unique powers, the unique understanding, the unique wisdom, the unique presence that I bring to every single room I enter in. It was in that mirror moment that I realized, because of my abandonment issues, I could not see my value. Because of my abandonment issues, I didn't have an identity. What I had was the fatherless daughter syndrome. What I had was the little girl who wanted a father but never got him. All I had was the voids that my childhood left me with. And it was in the moment when I shifted my focus off of all of the things that I said, this is why my life is the way it is. And when I shift my focus off of those things and onto myself, I said, but this is how my life will be. This is what my life can be. And so I want to encourage you today to understand that your value cannot be tied to people abandoning you, or if they will abandon you, or if they won't abandon you. Because when you do that, you run the risk of losing the very woman of God, the very generational curse breaker that's in you, the intelligent woman that's in you, the creative that's in you, the strong woman that's in you, the entrepreneur that's in you, the teacher that's in you, the cook that's in you, the artist that's in you, the vocalist that's in you. You run the risk of never meeting her because you're carrying that boulder of childhood trauma around, and the little girl who was left at 5 was never able to become the woman that was supposed to be a beast and a powerhouse at 25. So today, as we talk about overcoming abandonment issues, I want you to take some time to yourself. Take some time to yourself and really think about how your history has impacted your present and how your present can be the catalyst for your future. I want to encourage you to understand your history, to evaluate your present, and to shift your focus off of the childhood trauma that you've had, off of the heartbreaks that you've experienced, off of all the things that you feel like went wrong in your life that got you to this point. And I want you to have a mirror moment that says, today, September 9, 2020, I choose to operate out of abundance and not abandonment. Today, I choose to operate out of faith and not out of fear. Today, I choose to operate out of forgiveness and not anger. Today, I choose to act like I know my own name, because the one who actually named me has already written out my destiny, has already written out my future, has already told me that he would never leave nor forsake me if only I could find it in my heart to make him more than a fatherless gap filler and to make him my father for a lifetime.